Do you know what I find strange when you're doing this job? Suddenly, have you noticed over in Montecito, the likes of Meghan Markle, well, they've decided, of course, that no, now suddenly Fergie didn't teach her how to curtsy, you know. It was just one of those very brief meetings. I just love when you put that question to the communications team, how whenever there's a bit of a negative, and this is the world of celebrity, and this is the world that Harry and Meghan live in, you know, you just distance yourself. As I said earlier in the week, the thing that I found incredibly cruel, unkind, whatever you want to call it is, we're talking, of course, about their alleged close friend, Tyler Perry. And what was interesting I found with Tyler Perry is the fact that suddenly he was this great saviour, you know, the person that was going to rescue them, offered his house, private jet, gave them the run of the house, etc. The minute there's a hint of alleged scandal around him, you know, and whatever problems he has, you would have thought, oh no, the two chums might have been near him. Absolutely not. Not a mention, not a whifter, not anything behind the scenes. And this is really the true Harry and Meghan, the true humanitarians. On that Halloween event, they could have invited him. Let's not forget, this was supposed to be a family event where everybody was there together and it was going to be marvellous. And, you know, Meghan was making sure that her children, once again, from the back and then leaked again. Well, here's where I find this strange, because if I was Tyler Perry, I've got to be honest with you, I will be just wiping ties with those two people, because clearly they do not care about you. It's all very well Harry sitting there waving flags, talking about, oh, you know, this is what you do when you're on social media. Clearly he's seen all the social media regarding that terrible debacle that Tyler Perry has got himself in, allegedly, but not really a friend. Could be doing them a misservice. Maybe they secretly heart behind the scenes, but it's what you do in the public domain in this world, the celebrity world, that truly counts. Now, as you know, it's been a busy week in the royal world, as I said, incredible when you think. And these two basically started off the week picking up a humanitarian award. But now, according to an excellent source, Meghan Markle thinks, well, she's convinced Harry of this. Let me explain. Hi, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and welcome one and all brand new subscribers. Welcome to this week's By Royal Appointment. Cracking one I've got for you, because as we delve into the stories that truly do captivate your imagination, you do look into them and think to yourself, well, what would you do if you were in that particular situation, you know, if you are Meghan Markle? And I've often said here on the show, at the start of last week, she just lost her 10th publicist. And basically, Meghan Markle is an absolute nightmare to work for, as are a lot of people. You know, she's not on her own. I've worked with many of these people, whether it be the J-Los and the big divas, you know, they're very, very difficult. Nice to the press, but to the team behind them, you know, and that's really the important bit. Now, of course, Emily Robinson can say or do what she wants. She's got an incredible story, even after 3 months, because after 3 months, people are intrigued as exactly what these two do. But as many of you know, I've spoken to lots of ex-staff, and basically Harry and Meghan do nothing. They have nothing really to occupy their minds. And this is where this week's By Royal Appointment does get rather interesting, because as you know, obviously Fergie and Andrew and all the rest of the debacle is falling apart. Now, you would have thought again that if she wanted, or Harry wanted, to show some support, he may have come over or came out with a personal message or something to say, well, you know, tricky families, all that sort of stuff. Nothing. No, Harry and Meghan just literally carried on pushing and pushing their own remit, which is her jams or shampoo or whatever she's doing. I don't know. I mean, nobody's interested. I'd love to know, by the way, in the comments, you know, when she first launched, there was this big thing, wasn't there? And, you know, everybody was, oh, you know, there's the box and here's the jam, and everybody's doing taste tests. Nobody's bothered. I mean, absolutely nobody gives a stuff, because that momentum has gone. She lost the momentum because she didn't know how to market herself. And what's interesting, and I can tell you as ever, first and exclusive here on the show, remember, it's always fun, it's always first, and it's always free. The bottom line is that none of the celebrities that she sent things out to, the champagne, the new stuff, the seasonal packs and everything, not one of them have done anything. I mean, that is very telling, isn't it, right? You can dress that any way you want, but not one of them has put anything out. Remember before, even her best friend was saying, oh, breakfast is sorted, it's terrific, can't wait. Well, Meghan sent them round because clearly this month, in fact, now, aren't we? We're in November. Her big TV show comes back on Netflix, and this is the only marketing seemingly that she's doing. As I said, when she was at the Dodgers game, you would have thought at some point, cheekily, she might have even put like an as ever baseball hat on Prince Harry. And you say, oh, that's tacky. Remember, this is a woman who had PH 40 on baseball hats for Prince Harry's 40th birthday. She does tacky well, right? But she clearly didn't want to do it. But as I said, look into the marketing. No celebrities, there's no Beyoncés, there's no Oprah Winfrey's. Remember when she was whirling the coffee bags everywhere? Marvellous, couldn't believe it, etc. Nothing this time around. And there lies your problem for Meghan. But behind the scenes, Meghan and Harry absolutely relish this particular story, the one that's encapsulating the British monarchy. This is because, quite frankly, they still believe, and Meghan believes this 100%, and so do her team, that this is the way back. You see, Meghan believes that she is the superstar of the royal family. And Prince William might have a problem with her because, she's clearly, as she says, a forceful woman. William doesn't like strong women, according to Meghan and ex-staff members. And the reason why he likes Kate is she's a walkover, a washover. Now, I don't know about you, but I see a lot of steely determination in Catherine, the Princess of Wales. I think that she's very, determined on what she wants to do. I like all the nature things that she's insistent that the children do. I like the rules that they put in about, no phones, social media. That shows tough parenting. What I see with Meghan is somebody whose children, quite frankly, always look a little unkept, to be kind. And I don't necessarily think you have a strong dynamic between the two. So when Meghan says that Catherine is weak and a walkover, and that's the reason why William liked her and picked her, that is sheer jealousy. Other staff members have told me this, and I find this fascinating in the sense of that, Meghan Markle clearly looks at every single thing that Catherine is doing and thinks, what can I do? Now, the one thing that really baffles Meghan is that when Catherine attends an event, whether it be a charitable do or, something of that nature, what Meghan can't really understand is the fact that Catherine gets this worldwide press praising her about her stance, her charitable work, what she's wearing, the hair, the makeup, the look, how she stops cars to rush across to meet people. Meghan told a recent ex-staff member that if she stopped a car and did that, she would be seen as opportunistic and just trying to grab headlines, whereas when Catherine does it, it's always adoringly. That's how bad things have got. The bigger problem for Meghan is, though, that Prince Harry truly adores Catherine, the Princess of Wales. He cites her as being one of the instrumental people in his development and basically just helping him along in very difficult periods of his life. He told ex-staff members this. He would not dare tell his wife. But as this week sort of comes to yet again to another busy close and the climax of what's going on, behind the scenes in the land of Montecito and, of course, Palace Gates, there's a whole lot more, including this disaster that befell the Montecito too. Let me explain. One of the problems that Prince Harry has with his very difficult wife, as President Trump pointed out rather succinctly, one might say, is the fact that she gets bored very, very easily. And I say that 3 times because she's always moaning about boredom and she wants to do different things. And, suddenly she wants to be an entrepreneur, she wants to be a TV cook, she wants to be a politician, she wants to be able to guide people, 40 by 40, that sort of stuff. And this is the problem that you have with somebody like Prince Harry. You see, Prince Harry, as we all know, has never really had a job, apart from a little bit of a stint in the army. Now, he loved that, we all know that. And that went quite well for him. The minute he came out into real life, the only thing he could do was to play the buffoon, the fonkel as he called it, to William's children. And he kind of enjoyed that particular role. Meghan Markle really gets the itch very quickly. What she thrives upon, as we all know, is celebrity. It's the thing that she grew up with, being sat on a set alongside her father, the lighting director, really fed into that imagination of, I'm here, you like me, this is the celebrity world. And you only really have to see that in action when you see Meghan arriving for Gypsy on Broadway in May. You know, she just loved the attention. But behind the scenes, these things aren't very well choreographed. And this is the reason why staff get the bullet. You see, once you've introduced Meghan, she has very little conversation. You know, it's very much focused on, you need to talk about me if you want to keep me interested. And this is from excellent sources, right? And we've all met these people, haven't we, chums? You know, we've all met them. And the thing is, you've got their full attention if you're talking about them, like whether it's her latest endeavour, or as ever, or whatever. The thing is, you know, she very literally doesn't want to talk about the marvellous show, the singing, the dancing, the actors, because it's not about Meghan. Now, Harry is absolutely petrified about this, you know, because clearly he knows that his wife gets bored. And Harry, succinctly, some people might say, is quite a boring character, you know, off camera, as it were. He likes to play games, video games. He's quite happy knocking around with his 2 kids. He doesn't mind sort of running around the garden. That bores Meghan. You know, she needs stimulation, she needs success, she needs power. And what you've seen over these last couple of weeks with the awful situation in Paris where she decided to upload that disgusting video, really, whatever you think, it didn't work. Not one person from the fashion house has come out and said, you know, we were so grateful, she's done such wonders for us while she's been over here. Now, why do Meghan and Harry feel that they're going to get a return back to the monarchy? Well, it's quite simple, really. It's about the rule of game, the rule of thumb, as it were. You see, Meghan realises that, you know, people are still fascinated by the one and only facet that she had while she was in the monarchy. She realises that that's the reason, as I told you and brought you the news earlier this week, picked up, of course, by the lame media afterwards, that she uses ciphers on her books. She calls herself HRH. She knows that that's the fascination. People will ask her, and she talks about the royal family as if she was in it for decades. She talks about the Queen quite openly, but all good stuff, it has to be said, because she knows the Queen was very much loved, very much liked, and so Meghan wouldn't want to rock that boat, as it were, you know what I'm saying? Where this gets really interesting and difficult, though, if you are Meghan Markle on a basis, is that, you know, there is one person standing in her way for the return, and that is, of course, Prince William, effectively now king in waiting and king in everything else. And, you know, she couldn't really, as I've said many times before, understand why William didn't befall her charms. You know, when she met him in that famous meeting where she was barefoot and went for the hoax, she could not believe the standoffishness about him. He'd done his homework, right? MI5, MI6 had done their homework, right? So he knew a lot about Meghan Markle, and he wasn't just going to succumb because of his younger brother, that this, you know, very attractive girl, there's no need, you know, she was an attractive woman, then, you know, suddenly, oh, here I am, look, I'm great. He didn't buy into that. Meghan, though, believes it will be the will of the public. And it's stupid people like our culture secretary over here in the United Kingdom, Lisa Nandy, who famously said that she'd rather have Princess Meghan on the royal throne than anybody else. I mean, deplorable. And there she is gushing up, of course, to His Majesty the King, basically saying, you know, I don't really like you, but I would have preferred her. Meghan really homes in on stuff like this. And she's convinced Prince Harry that, in effect, it will be a matter of time. Because, if you think about it, when the Queen was alive and, you know, we're talking about slimming down the monarchy, there was only the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, that said, this is not a good idea. You know, we can't do everything. And obviously they're advancing years. This is what Meghan's seizing upon. She looks at somebody like Sophie and Edward. And obviously the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh are, again, not in the first flush of youth. She believes that Harry and Meghan in their 40s can offer some much needed zing and some much needed prestige and power. And her idea really was to smatter her everywhere around the world with her front cover pages. A bit like this particular one, right? You'll see this one with Us Weekly. And the Us Weekly thing is very much Meghan, you know, giving an interview without being given an interview. So she's soft soaping her way back, so she believes. She knows, though, that Prince William doesn't want anything to do with her. But the idea really is to try, via Harry, to get some connection back to His Majesty the King. As the King becomes a little older, a little frailer, a little bit more worn out just with the job, he will then look around and believe that, of course, William, as much zest as he's got, but now in his early 40s, will need some support. And she believes that Harry, manipulated in the right direction, will be able to offer that support back. In turn, Harry won't do it without her. And that's been the catalyst of the story all along. You see, push, 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 get back in. Now, the golden ticket for her was the fact that when Andrew had his title stripped, she didn't see this as a problem. She didn't think this is dire or a fear or a worry. She saw this as an open door opportunity, because suddenly she's telling Harry, and this is from staff members, when this erupts, this was just prior to Andrew getting the bullet and all of that sort of stuff. She said, when this erupts, people are going to look to you, and this is how she phrases it to Harry, are going to look to you to rescue the monarchy. You're the most popular person in the monarchy. You still are. When you were back in the United Kingdom, people loved you. Just look at the crowds that came to see you, the crowds that pulled in. So she's perpetuating this myth permanently, you see, to draw that back in. And the only person that she believes in her way is Prince William. So Harry has got to actively work on his father. As we saw though, his father is taking very much the direction of Prince William, right? So another problem for her. But she believes that that can be overridden by some soft soaping, proving that she's a good entrepreneur, etc. And that's the reason where you may have noticed, and all you eagle-eyed chums out there will have noticed this, that Meghan is now virtually copycatting everything from Highgrove and any royal association with her branding. The cipher, the colour of the boxes, she wants you to almost be tricking into that. And at one point a staff member told me they wanted to know exactly how they could get the second place on the Google search. So when you look for royal, how could you get as ever, you see? Now you can buy, as we all know, Google ads and stuff like that. There is no stone unturned with Meghan's drive to make sure that she gets back, in her opinion, in the rightful place where she and Harry, an afterthought some might say, should be, back on the balcony for Trooping the Colour and many other royal events. She still believes, though, that the way that the public would forgive them was if, of course, Catherine was to invite her to her carols at Christmas. And as she told a source earlier this week, that invitation is now looking closer than ever. And the weirdest bit is that Harry absolutely 100% believes it. I mean, truly believes it. As I said recently, according to a source, she could build a bird's nest in his ear. And truly, he would take it on. But that's through fear of her going. And then, of course, there's this. Meghan and Harry truly believe they're good for business, right? I mean, this is the absolute ridiculous theory that their team have told them over and over, that, no, you know, you're good for business. But the reality is that Meghan Markle is not good for business. And you only really have to look at her own branding, her own sales figures to know that. And what's really happened over this last year, you know, started out at the 2025 and the Sand Chums, is that, you know, really Meghan thought this was going to be it. This was going to be her year. She blames everything, of course, on the fires in LA that delayed the start of a series, losing momentum. According to a source, she went absolutely apoplectic when Netflix decided to dump her. You know, she knows she's been dumped. I mean, you know, it's all celebrities, isn't it? But she knows she's been dumped. The thing is, she couldn't believe she was dumped for Victoria Beckham, because she felt that, you know, she's a duchess. But of course now she's Lady Victoria and he is Sir David Beckham, and they are much more loved, much more likeable. But Meghan literally used that as a defense of, well, why, you know? But consequently, they know the figures don't lie. And the problem now that you have when you look at Meghan and Harry is, if you take the recent sort of thing that he did down, the sit down with the guy, is he a comedian or something? I'm not quite sure. But the absolute figures are dire. And at one point, say 2-3 years ago, they would have been up in their, you know, thousands, because we would have been interested in what they're doing, etc. And even a recent talk where Harry got up, you know, I don't know if you saw that, and he went to talk somewhere. I think it was about mental health or well-being or something like that. Nobody's interested. You know, he can't draw people even into the room. Behind the scenes, I've been told that although Harry is with those big conference agencies, you know, the ones where you get booked and you go off and speak about world events and life and all that sort of stuff. Well, there's very little interest because they don't really know what he's going to talk about. If you're talking, you know, I've done this as well. If you're talking, say, for instance, about marketing or something, you have to give them a structured idea of the reason why they're going to pay a lot of money to hear you speak. And, you know, it's normally from people that are very successful and they come on and they say, well, I did this or I marketed that person that way. Harry and Meghan have been very badly marketed from the off. I don't blame the people that they signed up. I blame themselves. They think they know better. They're always riding roughshod over people. And there lies your problem. And the bigger problem is now coming to fruition, because when Meghan recently popped up on things like Bloomberg Originals, do you remember that one, with the smash burger and the beer, and also relatable? I mean, it was just so boring, wasn't it? But, you know, what was she selling? And that poor girl, Emily Jang, or whatever she was called, what was she trying to get out of it? I never really understood what the idea was from the meeting, right? But consequently, that really bombed, right? It didn't work. And it's well known inside the Bloomberg circles that that was a failure, really. You know, it didn't pull off, as it were. So you've got that problem, right? And on top of all of that, even the sort of podcast that she did with Emma and the other lady, you know, the one with the high-pitched voice, what's her name now? Jamie Kern Lima, that didn't work. You know, because again, Meghan's not absolutely selling anything. And when you're not selling anything, it's very difficult to get people on board. The most recent flop, though, was Disney. People forget that they got a freebie to exploit their own children at Disney with the park closed, and they were whirling around on those rides and saying marvellous how it was and everything like that. They got paid a reasonable amount of money to appear on that Disney documentary. It didn't really transpire when they recently did a survey to say, you know, what do you think of when you think of Disney? And the idea really is that you go, oh, well, I saw Harry and Meghan talking about it, and I thought, oh, wow, you know, nobody mentioned them. So when they go tapping on the door next time, you're going to see, and this is how marketing works, that Disney will want more bang for their buck, right? They are going to want a lot more from them, because it wasn't enough to just say, oh, I like the teacup ride, or oh, that was my favourite. They're going to either make her do the voiceover or appear in it more, or shock horror, share and, you know, expose the children. Oh yes, that's, as we know, just a fraction around the corner. The Dodger Stadium thing, though, was fascinating in itself, because again, nobody saw this coming, and this was to counteract all of those building rumours of Harry getting very bored with his life out in Montecito. But as you can see from the pictures, if you watch it very, very closely, Harry actually has some interest in the game. He likes sport, and I can understand that, right? Where this gets interesting is, for me, with Meghan, she's not interested in the game. She's there because she's got the outfit on. They were told they had to wear the hats. That wasn't a discussion. If you want these freebies, you stand by the hot dog stand, you get Dodgers in there, you are nailing your colours to the mast, sister. And that's the reason what they had to do, right? Interesting again. Harry, very keen to do this. They could have brought even their child if they wanted, Archie, but no, they didn't want to do that, because consequently there wasn't too much of that, right? So that's the reason why that fell apart. But as a brand as a whole and everything like that, now they're reaching a desperate crossroads. And that's part of the reason why they got rid of the 10th publicist, or they left, or whatever, because nobody can create this anymore. The biggest success that Meghan has had is, of course, the twerking video, which is disgusting and, you know, whatever way you want to look at it, it just looks tacky. It doesn't sell entrepreneur, it doesn't sell marketing jams, all that sort of stuff. And yet that was the thing that they got offered. You know, Meghan said, oh, I've got this. Of course they're going to seize on it. They know it's dreadful, but of course they're going to get paid, and she got some hits. Now, behind the scenes, they are now actively looking for publicist number 11, right? I kid you not. And the thing about this is, who or what is going to be brave enough to take this on board? Absolutely. But back to, of course, the royal courtier and Harry and Meghan, etc. As I said, you know, the bottom line is Harry's now easing off the idea of, well, he wouldn't mind bringing his children back over for Christmas to spend some time with them at Christmas. Meghan, though, would find an excuse not to go there. She'll either stay with her mom because her mom doesn't want to travel. She has no intention. She wants Harry to pave the way so that when she does return back here to the United Kingdom, there is going to be no glitches, no fallouts, no failings. as I said, the problem really is the Prince and Princess of Wales, and I don't see them as a problem, but you know what I mean. They are not going to succumb to this idiotic sort of idea. But Meghan believes that Prince Charles, who after all succumbed to the idea of walking Meghan Markle down the aisle at St. George's Chapel, remember that she was able to manipulate that whole thing. Only the Queen knew really what was going on behind the scenes, and he said, of course. And then she dumped him halfway and then decided to walk alone because she wanted to be an independent woman. If you think Meghan Markle's done with King Charles, think again. And as ever, there's going to be somebody else doing her dirty work. She sees this whole debacle with Prince Andrew, Fergie and the rest as just the opening of a brand new door where the royal family will be forced, quite frankly, to take her and Harry back. And, more importantly, on her terms. And of that, she is truly, truly sure. As ever, as I often say, chums, when I know more, you'll know more. But this is all from ex-staff members who, quite frankly, have nothing to lose, couldn't give a fig anymore. And the bottom line is, they know exactly the workings of Meghan Markle's mind. It is a developing story. And as ever, thank you for taking time out to join me on this week's By Royal Appointment. Also, do take care of yourselves. Neil Sean, Kensington, London.